this, with a lot of hope, got hope for farming. So
Yeah.
what else is going on in the world?
Yeah, it's wonderful to see those solutions out there in the mix of this conversation because that's really where we need to go. And I'm going to switch to a different conversation here, but it's a similar idea. We can take some steps right now, very simple steps, to avoid making an already bad crisis worse. And what am I talking about? Well, it's hard to turn on any news report nowadays or listen to any podcast without the subject matter sounding like this. Take a listen.
All right.
First of its kind new report by the peer-reviewed journal The Lancet says mental health issues were magnified by the pandemic.
Data shows rates of depression and anxiety in young people rose by more than 50% in studies from 2010 to 2019.
Nearly 1 out of every 3 American adults reported having symptoms of anxiety or depression this summer.
An additional 53 million cases of major depressive disorder and 76 million cases of anxiety disorders were caused by COVID.
We have seen increased reports of distress, increased reports of stress, increased reports of individuals feeling overwhelmed.
A newest study by the American Academy of Pediatrics finds a 64% increase in antidepressants being prescribed to young people since just 2020.
And it's even higher for girls between the ages of 12 and 17, which saw a 130% increase since March of 2020.
Pharmaceutical companies worldwide are reporting spikes in the most commonly prescribed antidepressant drugs, from 10% in Australia to as high as 34% in the U.S.
While the rise in numbers is alarming, antidepressants, they can actually be life-saving. They say to keep an eye on your child's behavior and mood changes.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those I told you so. As we saw that happening with the COVID pandemic, you're going to destroy the lives of these kids and people and lock them down, take their jobs, and here we are.
And so the question is, can people be helped in a different way? Can we do stuff to not make this any worse? And let's focus on, in that report, it talks about the widespread use of antidepressants. And this is one of the big tools in the toolbox for psychiatry. It's perhaps one of the biggest. There are SSRIs, these are for mood disorders, these are for depression, bipolar disorders. And we look at some of the data surrounding this medicine, almost 3 decades now of use for this drug, basically, this drug class. And here's a study, because people are becoming long-term users of these drugs now. This isn't just 30 days to get my life straight. This is something you're on for 2, 5 years and counting. So
it seems like,
here's a study
I
out of
swear everyone I have met that, is involved with this process of taking these drugs is finding that they're never off of them. I mean, it just seems to me like you're on this for life. Like, where do they go? If I needed it now, why do I suddenly no longer need it, right? And so it just seems like they're on these things forever.
Right. And so what's some of the data showing? Because you'll hear a lot of the positives about this, but here's a study out of the UK, and it looked at over 220,000 people. They looked at the primary care records for them. They went back in and looked at this, looking at long-term treatment of antidepressants and adverse outcomes. And what did they conclude? The authors concluded our findings indicate an association between long-term antidepressant usage and elevated risks of CHDS, coronary heart disease, cerebral vascular disease, CVD mortality, and all-cause mortality. Wow. This is not a good thing if you're talking about long-term usage. And let's look at one of these, one of the popular ones, SSRIs. This is selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. This is Zoloft. Let's just look at the package insert of Zoloft right at the top. You don't even have to search for this. It's on the first page. Warning, suicidal thoughts and behaviors, all in capital letters, the black box warning. Antidepressants increase the risk of suicidal thoughts and behaviors in pediatric and young adult patients. So, I mean, this is always something that perplexes me, because you're taking this to kind of avoid that in some people, and it literally is causing the thing you're trying to avoid. And these things are given to, some of these drugs are given to people as young as 8. So this is what we're talking about here.
And we've talked about it before, and I'm going to put it out there, and I know it's super controversial, but while we're discussing all the school shootings and these issues that are taking place in this nation, like we're seeing nowhere else in the world, this has certainly got to be on the table. I mean, I know a lot of people say you can't blame those drugs, but when you see that label, what happens? You know, suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideation, and then when you look at most of the manifestos by these, you know, kids that go and do these atrocities, it's just this, I don't want to live anymore, and I don't care if anyone else does, and we're giving this product that enhances that. I mean, this is where we've got to get in these regulatory agencies. Can we do some studies on just the psychological effects? Is it possible this is what we're seeing? Is it kids that were on these that are shooting up the schools, or they just came off of it? I mean, things that we've got to be looking at. Put it